Usually getting paid more from your job is a good thing, but for some people on government assistance, it can actually make them worse off.
And I didn't want to take that extra client or those extra hours because that did take away my food stamps or my Medicaid.
On this episode, we sit down with someone who has lived this and for a long time felt stuck in poverty because it seemed like working harder just wasn't worth it. You're listening to Defending Ideas. Defending Ideas is a weekly podcast produced by Sutherland Institute. On this show, we are committed to renewing the principles of common sense conservatism, making you a better champion of sound ideas. Welcome back to another episode of Defending Ideas. I'm your host, Nic Dunn, and this week we're talking about opportunity and upward mobility once again, and specifically looking at how sometimes some of the rules in our public policies, like in safety net programs, can actually make it harder or create a disincentive for people who want to work and provide a better life for their families and who want to move towards self-sufficiency. In particular, we're talking again about something called the benefit cliff effect. And I'm excited to be joined in the studio today by Marcella Patiño, who's a Circle leader. Marcella, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And also Josh Nelson, who's a volunteer with Circle Salt Lake. It's called a Circle Ally. Josh,
thank
thanks
you.
for being with us. So Circle Salt Lake, we've talked about before, just as a reminder for our listeners, they're a local nonprofit here in Utah that does amazing work helping empower folks to progress and move toward work and self-sufficiency. I'm a big fan of the Circles organization, so I'm appreciative to both of you for coming on to share some experiences. And Marcella, I want to talk to you first because you have an experience of in recent years where you were working and you were also participating in some safety net programs, but you kind of felt stuck. And I maybe want to ask you to kind of tell your story. What did you experience and what was it like?
Yeah, being a nail tech, I did make a little bit of more money, and I didn't want to take that extra client or those extra hours because that did take away my food stamps or my Medicaid. So without taking that means that I can stay on these benefits for longer, and that would be good for my family.
And so you mentioned that you were working as a nail tech, so you had steady employment. And do you remember which programs you were on at the time as you were working as a nail tech?
Yes, I was on a Medicaid, and I was also on food stamps.
Okay. And so working and being on Medicaid and food stamps, can you explain a little bit more how it felt? That, I mean, did you have opportunities to earn more money?
Yes, I had a lot of opportunities. I could have went and did nails at another school. They would give me more money, or taking on another client, or taking more hours, or working another day. But I didn't take that because I didn't want to lose my benefits.
What did you think would happen if you said, yes, I'll work more hours, I'll take on more clients, I'll increase my earned income? What did you fear would happen if you had done that?
If I did that, then they would take away my food stamps. It's a summertime kind of thing. So if I took on more clients in the summertime, and I wouldn't get my benefits in the wintertime. So I needed to stay very leveled.
Can you talk about why, I mean, being on benefits, on safety net programs, it's not something that necessarily is fun or easy, but it's something that provides some stability, right? I mean, why did you feel like, well, I can't lose these resources, and so you felt sort of disincentivized from taking those opportunities to work more?
Because if I did take that opportunity, it would just be a little bit of amount of money compared to the big amount of money that I got for food stamps.
So the increase in earned income you would have received from that, whatever you would have lost in this case from food stamps, would have been more than the income gain.
Yes,
is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
How did that feel? Kind of being in a situation where, well, I can't work more because if I do, it'll make my family worse off. What did that feel like?
It felt very degrading, a little bit disappointing as well. So I would rather just not take that extra money and just stay where I was at, so that I didn't have to worry about my kid not eating.
Josh, I'm curious to your thoughts on this. As someone who works with folks in circles, who kind of sees these experiences, is this kind of a common thing? I mean, do you see it often occurring that people feel, again, sort of this disincentive of, well, if I work more, if I earn more, if I take these economic opportunities, yeah, my earned income might increase. But if there's a disproportionately large loss of benefits on the back end, in general, does this just, in your anecdotal experience, create kind of this feeling of, well, is it even worth it for folks on safety net programs to work and progress if they're facing a cliff?
Yeah, I think Marcella said it well for her situation. We know a friend that we're aware of. She was very proud to get a $2 an hour raise. That's about $330 a month. And that cost her nearly $1,500 a month in benefits. Yeah, it was in her case, it was childcare and food stamps, and it just wasn't worth it. And it really set her back. In fact, it set her back such that I think she was evicted, and it really spiraled her life so that she had to start over in many ways.
Marcella, can you talk about kind of the desire? I mean, you've talked about your work, and as we were talking offline, you talked about how you have a sense of pride. You like working. There's an excitement. There's just something fulfilling about doing that. I wonder if you can expand on that a little bit. How does it feel to be able to work and progress economically and provide for your family? And then again, I want to kind of put that in context of when these cliff effects occur, or even just a perception of a cliff effect. What does it do to that spirit of desiring work?
It kind of destroys my spirit of work, because what if I make a little bit less than what those benefits are giving me? Or what if I only make enough for this month, but next month I don't make enough, but then I don't get those benefits? So that's kind of scary for me to be like, yes, I want to change my income, but then I have to remember I have kids to take care of.
Josh, I'm curious on your thoughts as well in regards to, again, the folks you work with in circles, and just the folks you've interacted with in general in your capacities as an ally, as a volunteer there. In my experience, again, just talking to folks who are on these programs, the vast majority of folks want to work. They want to move towards self-sufficiency. They don't want to be on these programs forever. I'm assuming that's your experience too, Marcella.
I definitely don't want to be on it forever.
And so there's this desire to work and to move towards self-sufficiency. I just want to know what your experience there as well. How would you describe sort of the work ethic and the motivation that these folks have who are on these programs? What's the level of desire to work off of these programs and move towards self-sufficiency? How would you characterize that?
So I've been involved in circles for 2.5 years, so I can't say that I have a lifetime of experience, but the circles community may be unusual from the general poverty population, but in circles, they do not fit the stereotypical image that we see in the media of, oh, they're on poverty, they're on welfare, they're just milking the system and they want to stay there. These benefits are subsistence level. And yes, Marcella wanted to keep those because she wanted her kids fed and such. But the people I've become associated with at circles, and particularly with Marcella, she's very driven, and she wants much more from her life than a subsistence level living. She wants to own a home. She's an entrepreneurial spirit. She wants to have a studio. She's very creative with her art and a number of things where her life has got a lot of optimism and potential. And I just think that's true of what we've seen with others in circles is being on benefits is degrading. It wears on you. The eligibility requirements are demanding, and a lot of people don't want to be on them.
And Marcella, one of the things I want to emphasize, this came up in a previous conversation with another circle leader where we had a similar conversation about just the experience of what it's like participating in these safety net programs and trying to work and progress to be able to move towards self-sufficiency, towards self-sufficiency in a way that can provide for your family to where you don't need benefits anymore. And again, I want to kind of pinpoint this experience of this hunger for work and progression. This is something that came up before, that for people who have that desire that, well, I want to work, I want to progress. I think largely that's built into most folks. Again, I think, as you mentioned, Josh, the stereotype of people who are just totally content to kind of just live off the system, I think if that's true, it's a very small minority of folks who are on these programs. And so if the vast majority of them would say, well, I want to work and get to a point where I'm self-sufficient, but sometimes maybe it feels like these programs that are designed to help and do help make it harder. Marcella, I'd love your take on how would you describe, on the one hand, the very valuable benefit that these programs provide, because they can provide stability, they can provide things that your family needs. And of course, that's a wonderful thing, that we live in a society where we can provide resources for people to help provide that kind of stabilizing effect. But then also that feeling of, well, I don't want to be on these forever. I want to work. I want to be self-sufficient. How would you describe that experience and that feeling of recognizing both the beneficial value of these resources and also the desire to no longer need them at some point?
I think that it's very hard to understand. You have those benefits there for you to, as a safety net, to make sure that you're doing what you need to do. And then the desire to be better at your life and not need those anymore. But you also have that stuck in your head, like, oh, I have to take care of my kids first. And those benefits are more reliable than a job that you might not even get.
And so how do you then navigate that in terms of, as you've just illustrated, going out into kind of the workforce and the job market? As you mentioned, you were working as a nail tech, but what does it take for you to have the confidence or the faith to say that, well, I can move forward economically, I can take this job, I can take this raise or opportunity to work more hours? What is needed to help you get there to where you aren't worried about whether or not you're going to lose certain benefits anymore?
I think it would be better if there was more of a, I'm not really sure how to say it, Josh. Can you help me out?
Well, you've said in the past you wish there was kind of a tapered or a sloped decline.
Yes, that's what I was trying to think.
Just not a big shock.
Yes, not a big shock. Like, there's sometimes I wake up and I don't have none of my benefits because I made a little bit too much this month. But if I did have that little safety net of, okay, she only made this X amount of money, so let's just take away maybe $200 of her food stamps, or maybe trickle down the benefits. I think that would be way better than, I'm sorry, you don't qualify anymore.
Josh, tell us more about, as a reminder for our listeners, the role that Circles plays, because there's, as folks who listen regularly will know, we of course talk about things in the public policy context. What are some policy changes we can push for in legislation or other avenues to try and make a difference on these kinds of things? But also there's a really important role for what I would call civil society, for private sector nonprofits like Circle Salt Lake that are really doing amazing things. I mean, I remember when I first came into contact with Circles, I remember thinking, well, this is the solution, or at least a major solution to poverty. It's building social capital to empower the Circle leaders to be able to progress. It's a really, really cool model. And so, I mean, I'm puffing you guys up a little bit because I believe it. There's real value that Circles offers. But as someone who's part of the organization, as an ally, as a volunteer, how would you describe the role of Circle Salt Lake in helping people like Marcella be able to navigate these difficult things to move closer to work and self-sufficiency?
Yeah, the Circles program is really awesome. Again, I'm not sure it's representative of the total population of poverty, but in Circles, these are people that are vetted. You have to meet certain criteria, and then you go through a 12-week training course on how to organize, budget, deal with conflict, a host of things. I, as a volunteer, get vetted and trained so we can kind of work together. But the program is very powerful because the Circle leader, like Marcella, she is in charge of leading her and her loved ones out of poverty. I am a cheerleader and a sounding board. I have access to resources like my buddy's an attorney. We can ask him, hey, what do you think on this? Stuff like that. But it's her life and her direction. So it's my honor to be a cheerleader and a sounding board in the circles and the lifestyle of middle class that I'm familiar with as she climbs out to where she wants to be.
Josh has also helped me with applications and pinning down my budget that I've had a hard time doing, and also with scholarships as well. My allies have helped me navigate those applications as well.
So Marcella, how would you describe kind of you mentioned some of the things that you wish would happen as far as how you can taper off these programs. in terms of essentially smoothing out the benefit cliff a little bit. If you were to graph it out, which we've talked about before, we can do now with the cliff calculator tool that we have that Utah's a part of. But how else would you describe kind of the role of circles? So maybe a way to think about it is, yes, there are policy solutions that can and should be brought to bear to try and fix this, but again, kind of a nonprofit private sector solution is what circles can help you do. How would you describe the value of circles or groups like circles in helping you and others in your circumstance be able to progress economically?
Not only does circles help with, like I mentioned, applications, navigating the DWS, they also give you like a sense of they're there for you. And sometimes people don't have that. They don't have that safety net of circles. Circles is like, okay, we're going to figure out how to apply for these benefits and fight for you. Like I had Stephanie, the advocate, that helped me with DWS and learn about that cliff effect as well.
Can we drill into that for a second? Because it stands out to me because we usually talk of the safety net in terms of, again, financial resources or various programs, as we talked about for food, for medical, for cash assistance, any of those kinds of things. And again, it's good that we have a society where we have programs in place to help people in that regard. But what you just described, there's a different kind of safety net, social safety net that groups like Circles provides. What's different about it? It's human, it's connection. Can you dive into that a little bit?
It's connection, and it's also accountability for the circle leaders, because not only is he being there, I'm being there telling him this is how I want to change my life, and he's telling me, good job, keep going. And if you don't have that, you kind of just sit where you're at, sit there. And that's what I think people with the cliff effect, they don't want to move, or they just don't know how to move. And circles are my allies there to show me how to move.
And I would also add, I've been very naive to the situations that people are in poverty. And Marcella has been so gracious to let me ask her a lot of stupid questions. But that process, the circle leader and ally, is a good process because I ask her stuff that seems obvious. And then when she articulates it, we help peel the onion and we understand, these different pieces. And then I can bring my perspective to help sequence, you mean so if we did this, then it would help you with that? And so then she says, yeah, I think that might be a good next step. So she builds her next goals and we slowly sequence together. We've been working together for a little over 2 years.
Yes.
And it's a long process, but it's meaningful and long-lasting. It's not a Band-Aid. It's not a program where 12 weeks you're done, see you, good luck, and then she falls back. No, she's changed her life and she's living in a better situation. There's a host of things that she's done that require great courage that I'm very impressed with.
Well, I think that's a point really worth driving home is that, again, especially those of us who work in the public policy space, it's so easy to get so kind of sucked into just the policy world. What various legislation can we pass on what various level to make a difference? And that's very valuable. And again, I'm not discounting that. But one of the important things we try and espouse here at Sutherland Institute is the importance of civil society and the importance of our civic institutions. And I would say that the private nonprofit community, with Circles being an example of that, is a really good example of how, again, the private civil community can be a solution for these kinds of things. We don't have to always wait on the federal government to fix problems in their programs. We're going to address that, obviously. We need to address that as a state, as a country, as a community. But in the meantime, there's some real good things happening on the ground here in Utah right now, making a difference.
There is really good resources that the Circles provide. They also help you navigate it. That's the number one thing I had a problem with, is not knowing what to do and how to do it or who to ask. And they knew all of those.
So to drill into that a little bit, Marcella, is it kind of like, and again, I'm thinking back to your experience in recent years where you were working, you were on SNAP and Medicaid, but you kind of felt like, well, I can't work more, earn more because I'm going to lose SNAP benefits. That's going to make me worse off. In that kind of circumstance, did you feel like, well, I don't know how to navigate, work, benefits, life in general to progress, yes, right? And then Circles kind of can help
circles came in like a hawk. Take you. But they definitely helped me, because if I didn't see that, if I wasn't there, they wouldn't help me budget my money. And also with the financial assistance that I got, I wouldn't have known that. And also FAFSA, I wouldn't have known that either. And so they helped me get those safety nets that I never even knew about.
So Circles is awesome because some of the things she said, I come in not knowing any of these tools, but the Circles leadership, they know about the FAFSA program, financial aid. And if there's a problem with housing, we can say, hey, we've got a crisis here. Who do we talk to? And they'll point us to so-and-so, a Medicaid expert, blah, blah, blah. I can then access these resources, and with Marcella, we can then sequence the problem, prioritize it, and go about it together. So even though I have no training or expertise, I can just be another resource to help her not be alone as she's trying to raise 3 children, but I can be a sounding board, validating, verify, do some homework, come back to her with an answer, then she can take action on.
Well, let's take a quick break, because when we come back, Marcella, I want to talk about kind of what your circumstance is now and what's on the horizon for you. What's next, and how Circles is playing a role in some of that as well. And then again, maybe finish off the conversation with the other kinds of things that Circles is helping equip you to do, and help you overcome the benefit cliff or leap over it, or kind of whatever we think is on the horizon for you. And then finish up the conversation from there. But we're going to take a quick break. Again, we're talking with Marcella Patiño, a Circle leader, and Josh Nelson, who's a Circle ally, about some real experiences trying to navigate work and the benefit cliff here in Utah. This is Defending Ideas. We'll be right back.
For a deeper dive into the issues you care about, read Sutherland Institute's official blog, Insights and Takeaways. You'll gain deep insights from policy experts and relevant takeaways voters need to know. Visit sutherlandinstitute.org.
Welcome back to Defending Ideas. We're going to continue our discussion about benefit cliffs and how sometimes the rules built into our social safety net programs can actually make it feel harder to progress economically for people who want to work and move towards self-sufficiency. But first, I want to remind you, if you're enjoying this episode today, please visit defendingideas.org. You can find access to this and previous conversations, as well as short clips on our YouTube channel that you can use on your social media channels and in your conversations with friends and family about the kinds of issues we're talking about today. Also, remember to subscribe to Defending Ideas on Apple, Spotify, any of the major podcast platforms, wherever you like to listen to your shows. Just search for Defending Ideas and click that subscribe button. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the Sutherland Institute YouTube channel. And if you do, click the little bell icon on the corner so you get notified each time a new episode drops, which is every Tuesday morning. Again, find access to all of that and more at defendingideas.org. Well, Marcella and Josh, I want to continue and really talk about kind of where things stand now. So Marcella, tell us what you're doing now for work. What's your situation as far as the programs that you've been using? And then I want to get into kind of what's next. What are you hopeful happening? So tell us about your work progress that you've been able to make recently.
Right now, I just finished school doing esthetician. So I have a job that I could utilize both of my licenses. So now I'll be able to take more clients.
Excellent. So it's a more advanced role in your industry.
Yes.
I assume that means more work or elevated work, more pay, presumably.
Yes, definitely more pay. So that's really nice.
How does it feel to, I mean, we talked about your experiences in years past in the first segment, but you've had this step forward of progression in your work. How does that feel compared to before when you kind of felt stuck?
I feel like I'm more successful in life. And when I was stuck, I felt like I couldn't move forward with my life. And so now I feel I have a better future for me and my kids.
Josh, I'd love your perspective. I mean, again, we kind of a big theme is how Circles has been integrated and helping empower Marcella to again be a leader in her life and make these really important steps forward. But how do you see this progression happening, and what's the role of Circles in helping with that?
Well, we've worked together. She's the one doing all the work, but Yes, we've helped her apply for scholarships. She got the scholarships, and
I
she's
got two.
you got two or
Two
several.
scholarships,
I
Josh.
got FAFSA and I got 2 scholarships.
Yeah. And they've invited her back. She got declined for one, and they said, please reapply. We got another one coming up.
Yes.
So they love her. And I think Marcella is unusual. Yes, she got her new credentials, but her employer, when she recently applied, they had a rigid hours set. But when they found out more about her, they changed the hours to match her schedule as a single mother. She's making more per hour because she's highly trained. They've seen her good work. So even though she's been there 6 or 8 weeks, she's already starting to train others. And people come in and ask for her by name. So she's getting the referrals. So it's just a testament to who she is and the drive that she has, the high quality she performs. That's what's awesome about Circles. Now, not everyone's like that, but she is like that. And this is the kind of people we find in Circles. We empower them and get them pumped up.
And seeing that I am going to train other people to do nails, I want to get my instructor license. So that's another step that I can take to bring in more income.
And as you've been taking these steps where you're gaining skills and credentials, you're progressing in your work in your industry, and you're earning more income, how does that factor back into the programs that you're on? I think you mentioned you're currently still on SNAP and Medicaid, and also a child care subsidy now. So how do you look at trying to manage your participation in those safety net programs, even while your earned income is increasing because of these advances you're making in work?
So right now I am a little worried about the child care being taken off in October, but I think that Josh, my ally, and Ben will definitely help me navigate those.
And Josh, what does that look like? I mean, again, we've talked a lot about this idea of as your earned income increases, there's a threshold at which you would lose a benefit, in this case, the child care subsidy. So how do you and Marcella work together to kind of plan for that and manage that in the next few months?
So we have a spreadsheet going, and the child care benefit has been granted up through October. So we have that remaining 5 months or so. We're watching her income progression because it is rising. She's got returning clients. So there's a rise coming, but we know that there's a threshold, which when her income hits that, she'll lose the child care. So the calculus we're trying to do is her income progression going to be strong enough to live without that $700 a month or whatever it is? And how much can she save? Because she knows that she might kind of go in the hole a little bit. Can she save enough to live off savings while she continues to raise her income? So it's math we're still working on. It's scary because we don't know, but we'll be watching it and just watching it. So that's the complexity of it, but it's scary, and it's scary.
Maybe to put another way, when we talked in the first segment of some of your past experiences, Marcella, where there was a fear that earning more income would lead to a loss of some of the benefits that you had. And so again, it contributed to that feeling of kind of feeling stuck, that my earned income increasing would actually make me worse off financially. And then now you've improved. You're better off financially in a number of ways. You're progressing at work, but you're kind of saying, well, there may be another cliff here in a few months where I might have to make another calculation of, are you asking yourself, do I need to, in the coming months, pause my economic progression because another step forward economically would lead to a loss of a benefit that would be disproportionate and actually make me worse off? Is that a way to capture it? How would you describe it?
No, I definitely think that it's really scary because if I don't have childcare, then I cannot take those extra hours and I cannot take the new clients. But I don't think I'm scared anymore because I've been through the cliff effect, and I have them helping me walk through it, and I'll get more training to get more hours, to get more clients, to pay for the daycare.
I mean, that kind of leads into this. There's a hopefulness.
Yes, there's hope. Definitely hopeful. Yes.
So what's next for you? What's next for this partnership with Circles? I mean, kind of, what do you hope you're able to do again with your work and moving forward towards self-sufficiency? What's on the horizon for you?
Crunching the numbers and making sure that I can survive off of what I make, which he's going to help me with the spreadsheets.
Right. So we're watching that. She has high ambition and high energy. So if you ask the long-term question, she wants to own her own house. She wants to start her own business and do a lot of things. And I already know that's her nature, and she's going to succeed. We're just working through the details of these interim steps so that we don't get overextended and have a little relapse, and trying to make those decisions as we get more info.
Well, I just want to again reemphasize kind of the role that Circles has played and the things that you have done, Marcella. That this is, I mean, we talk so often about Utah being the upward mobility capital of the nation, and there's a lot of good data to make that case. But I think what people miss sometimes is it's the relationships. It's, again, we talked before about these civic institutions. It's groups like Circles. It's building the social capital, and it's the hunger and the drive that you have, Marcella, for economic progression and work and moving towards self-sufficiency. I mean, just so much of what you do and what Circles offers is in many ways kind of the best of Utah. And so I just want to express some appreciation for both of you, what you're doing, of course, in your own lives, but for the state as a whole as well.
It's nice because when I graduate Circles, I definitely want to become an ally so I could teach them the stuff that I've went through and that I've learned. So definitely a connection there.
Yeah, Marcella would be a fantastic ally, and she's one who gives back, and it spirals up. Utah's a great place, and this is the kind of work ethic we have here.
Well, I think we'll leave it there. Again, I just want to thank you both, Josh, for sharing kind of some of what you do, what Circles does, and Marcella, especially what your experience has been. Sometimes it's hard to share things about our lives when we can feel vulnerable, but just want to, again, express appreciation for you sharing this, because it's very important to tell these stories so we can make improvements in these areas.
That's what I want. I want things to change, and not just for me, but for other people that are suffering as well.
Well, thank you both again. That was Marcella Patiño, Circle leader, and Josh Nelson, a Circle ally with Circle Salt Lake here in Utah. We're going to take one final break before we leave you with some final thoughts. This is Defending Ideas. We'll be right back.
Sometimes it's hard to keep up with the latest policy debate that affects your life. The solution? Subscribe to Sutherland Institute's weekly newsletter, where you'll find in-depth insights from seasoned policy experts, compelling multimedia, and advance notice of special events. Visit sutherlandinstitute.org.
Welcome back to Defending Ideas. Before we close the episode, just a few final thoughts from our conversation today with Marcella and Josh. Number one, it's a fundamental principle of the American dream that if you work hard, you can improve your situation. That's really the promise of free enterprise, this free market enterprise system that we have in this country. But when that promise is out of reach for some folks, we need to consider what policy changes or other changes we can put in place to help it feel within their grasp. Number two, hard work should pay off, and therefore our social safety net programs should always incentivize, never disincentivize work. And lastly, we can't forget that the individual stories, the individual experiences of real people facing these challenges are essential to having this kind of conversation. And as they share their experiences, they show us that they desperately want to work. They want to progress economically. They don't want to be on these programs forever. They want to achieve self-sufficiency. They're hungry for it. It's our job just to clear their path. Sometimes that means some policy reforms. Well, that will do it for this episode of Defending Ideas. I hope that you have enjoyed this conversation and that you feel better equipped to defend some of the ideas we talked about today. If you like this episode, please visit defendingideas.org, where you can access this and previous conversations. You can also subscribe to this show on Apple, Spotify, all the major podcast platforms. Wherever you like to get your shows, just search for Defending Ideas, click subscribe, and also subscribe to the Sutherland Institute YouTube channel. And when you do, click the bell icon in the corner so you get notified each time a new episode drops, which is every Tuesday morning. Again, all of that and more at defendingideas.org. And lastly, if you liked this conversation, you find it meaningful to the public dialogue about how to improve upward mobility for our fellow Americans, if you want to see more of this kind of stuff, please support the broad work of Sutherland Institute by visiting sutherlandinstitute.org/donate. That is all for this episode of Defending Ideas. Thank you so much for being with us. From the Sutherland Institute in Salt Lake City, I'm Nic Dunn. We'll see you next time.